Hi there, thanks for joining us as we look at these first few verses of Acts chapter 25. We're looking at verses 1 to 12 today, which is the account of Paul and Festus. And throughout Paul's ministry, we see him consistently at odds with the leaders of the time as his pursuit of spreading God's word brings opposition and persecution. We probably won't experience exactly what Paul did, but we're clearly told in the Bible to expect persecution if we follow Jesus. False accusations are a classic form of attack, and this passage is helpful in teaching us the best course of action. And when this happens, essentially we need to be aware, we need to be smart, prepared, and most importantly not to be guilty of whatever it might be that we're accused of. In Matthew 10 and verse 16, Jesus says, "I'm sending you out like sheep amongst wolves, therefore be as shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves." So there's a clear indication here that we need to be shrewd, we need to be aware, we need to be smart, but also we need to be innocent as well. And this passage that we're going to look at now just is a great illustration of that, and we can look at what Paul does and how he behaves and what he does in the situation to protect himself. So the key point here is that we can rely on God's intervention. God is sovereign and he'll protect us in these situations. He manipulates and makes people act in such a way. Nothing happens without God's intervention, without God's say-so. So we need to first and foremost be believing in his sovereignty and relying on him to bring justice in whatever situation we're in. Paul isn't after God getting him off something that he's done. He hadn't done something he should have, and he's asking God to protect him. God protects the innocent, and God brings justice. Paul's been through a tough time with Felix. We've read in recent chapters, and now here comes the guy called Festus, who's a new governor in the region. Paul has to be on his guard. He has to be smart, in order to make sure that the false accusations that are made against him by the Jews and the religious leaders don't stick. But of course the main thing here is that the accusations don't have credence. Paul's character and how he's lived his life according to God's will mean that he isn't guilty of what he's accused of. He has abided by the law, by God's law and by the law of the land. This is another example of how God is sovereign and how he protects the shrewd and yet innocent Paul in this passage. So let's read the verses and see where we go. So it's Acts verses 1 to 12. Now 3 days later, Festus had arrived in the province. He went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea. And the chief priests and the principal men of the Jews laid out their case against Paul, and they urged him, asking as a favour against Paul that he summon him to Jerusalem, because they were planning an ambush to kill him on the way. Festus replied that Paul was being kept at Caesarea and that he himself intended to go there shortly. "So," said he, "let the men of authority among you go down with me, and if there is anything wrong about the man, let them bring charges against him." After he stayed among them not more than 8 or 10 days, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day he took his seat on the tribunal and ordered Paul to be brought. When he had arrived, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him, bringing many and serious charges against him that they could not prove. Paul argued in his defence, "Neither against the law of the Jews, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I committed any offence." But Festus, wishing to do the Jews a favour, said to Paul, "Do you wish to go up to Jerusalem and there be tried on these charges before me?" But Paul said, "I am standing before Caesar's tribunal, where I ought to be tried. To the Jews I have done no wrong, as you yourself know very well. If then I am a wrongdoer and have committed anything for which I deserve to die, I do not seek to escape death. But if there is nothing to their charges against me, no one can give me up to them, I appeal to Caesar." Then Festus, when he had conferred with his council, answered, "To Caesar you have appealed, To Caesar you shall go.